Okay, this is Tom with Gay Talk Radio. I'm speaking today with a couple awesome parents, Paul and Hjordy Wagner from Wisconsin, who have
Hi,
written a book called Ready or Not, They're Gay. The book launched in May of 2009, right?
that's
Yes.
correct.
And Paul and Hjordy are with us. They're both retired public school teachers, and that's just awesome. I was especially moved when I saw that Paul, you worked with special needs kids, huh?
Yes, and just general special needs, LED, and physical education.
Awesome. I don't want to try to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, so I will say right up front that I have not read the book. I have not even seen it, and so I'm going to be getting an off-the-cuff education here along with the listeners. So I think it's a unique approach.
Sounds
There
good.
you go.
Okay, let's see here now. I Paul and Hjordy, and Hjordy spells her name Hjordy,
That's correct.
and I think I heard you say that was Danish.
Yes, it's my grandmother actually came from Hjorring, Denmark, and that's spelled Hjorring.
Wow.
Yeah, a coincidence, huh?
Yeah. Well, when I first saw it, I said that's got to be Hjordy, and I was thinking, oh, Star Trek. You know. Well, I just had to bring that up because I heard, the stuff about Wizard of Oz, which we'll have to talk about here in a little bit too.
Oh yes.
Well,
Uh,
now there's a Geordie on the Green Bay Packers. He's an end or receiver, and so Geordie's everywhere.
There you go.
that's awesome. I'm sure he spells his name different though,
Just
Yes.
without the H.
without the H, really.
Yep, that's all.
Huh. Interesting. So I was reading one of the articles I read when I did a little bit of research online, came from the AARP, and it says that Paul served as an elementary teacher and elementary physical education specialist in the, how do you say that? You Claire?
Eau Claire,
Oh,
and that means clear water. It's a French name.
ah. And Jordy worked in various roles for the district, including media specialist, strategic planner, and community relations coordinator.
Yes, that's correct.
So, what was it, 33 years you were with the school district?
Yes, Paul was 32 years. I was 33 in education. And we actually loved what we were doing when we retired. But we always said we wanted to retire from that profession while we still loved it.
Well, that could be taken a couple different ways.
Could be.
It's like before the inevitable hits us in the rear, we better get out of here.
Maybe so. But we still enjoy working with education. We've done a lot of things since then, for the school district, and Paul and I have both subbed in the school district. So we still love our school district in Eau Claire.
Cool. Um, and what is this about a Highsmith Award? You're the 2005 recipient of the Highsmith Award. What's the Highsmith Award?
Well, you really did dig, didn't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, our professional organization, Wisconsin Educational Media Association at the time, provided an award from the Highsmith Company to someone who has contributed and done something innovative and good for the program of media services. And I was very fortunate to be the recipient of that award. And we were able to get some money from Highsmith to give something to our school. So that was a great moment.
Wow. Yeah, I read there they said that the nomination letter stated that Hjordy has greatly impacted the students, staff, and parents since she began her service at South Middle School. In addition, her work is unsurpassed on many committees: the SMS Coordinating Council, the SMS Ad Hoc Wellness Assessment Committee, the SMS Staff Development Committee, and the SMS Technology Committee. And that Hjordy is also the South's communications coordinator. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
I was
She's my little VIP.
I was impressed.
Well, those were kind words.
And I see that you were both born and raised in Minnesota.
That's right. I was a little town of Caledonia, Minnesota, down in the southeastern part, and then Hjordy was kind of close to Rochester, Minnesota, which would be the Mayo Clinic area, and that was Plainview, Minnesota.
And y'all came to the University of Wisconsin, right, to go to college.
Before then, it was Winona State, at that time college. Now it's, I guess, Winona State University, and that's where we met. We met on Valentine's Day.
In 1970, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Awesome.
And we both got our master's degree, though, at the University of Wisconsin in Eau Claire.
Okay, but there's a big gap from what I saw between when you got those degrees. It says, Hjordy, that you got yours in 1990 and Paul got his in 1974.
Yeah, well, someone had to stay home and take care of the kids and do these other things. We had to do it one at a time because we always made a commitment that one of us was going to, kind of be in the home role if the other one was really busy with something. And so for a period of time, I was home a little bit more, and I went part-time for a very short period of time as well, so I could be with the kids. And then we kind of reversed that closer to the second half of our careers.
Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like I was incorrect. Paul got his first degree in 74, but then he went on for a Master's of Science in 81 is when he got that one, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right. So, yeah. All right. Sorry about that little mix. I don't want to deceive anybody, I don't. Tom's a liar,
But it was a gap in there between the time that he got his master's and I did. So I guess, the answer would still stand. That's why there was a gap between our degrees, our secondary degrees.
Right. That's awesome. Okay, so Valentine's Day, that is, how much more romantic can you get?
Yes, it was. We actually had a double date, and we went with another couple, another blind date for them. We both ended up marrying these guys as a result of that blind date, and we're still good friends today.
Goodness, you didn't have a double wedding also, did you?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
But they were in each other's wedding for best, like, best lady or whatever they call it. Yep.
Yes, and we both had two boys. Both of the couples, both of us did. So we had a lot in common over the years.
And we still get together.
Were either one of their boys gay?
No.
No?
Nope. They were twins, in fact. So they had double trouble right off the bat there.
Yeah, you all had your 5-year spread going on for you there.
Yeah, we did. We had quite a gap.
Y'all like spreading stuff out. We're building a kind of a foundation here.
You're right about that.
Okay, let's see here. What do I have next? I kind of didn't organize my questions and stuff. It's just kind of all jumbled up here. So, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, so I don't try to keep the pertinent stuff together. But what the heck?
Yep.
So you had two sons. You have Brad and Andrew, and they're 5 years apart.
Yep.
That's correct.
And Brad came out to you, the oldest, and when he was 19 years old, and that was 12 years ago, right?
Yes.
Both came out at 19, and it's 5 to 6 years between the two boys for the amount of time.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting, Paul, that how when y'all told the story about about Brad coming out to you, how he,
Yep.
I was like, he told you had just given Hjordy had just given a speech about truth and honesty or something like that.
Yeah, Andrew was, he was 13 at the time, and just kind of got in trouble a little bit with not telling the truth about something. I couldn't even tell you what it was. And so Hjordy and Andrew are having their truth talk, and I guess a light bulb went off for Brad that, hey, it's time. It's time for me to talk. But it was later at night, and so I think his strategy was I'll get mom or dad. In this case, he asked Hjordy to come downstairs, and so I went upstairs and had Andrew, jump in bed, and then I went up to my bedroom, and then Hjordy went downstairs, and it seemed like that was the shower that took forever because Brad said, "I'm gonna take a shower, and then we'll pop on the couch. I need to tell you some things." And her mind was going crazy at that time because, hey, at 19 years old, who knows what the conversation was going to be, because it could have been anything.
Right.
Yep.
The mother's stomach turns, and the shower went on and on and on, and finally he came out and he said, I've been lying to you all of my life. And he said, I'm gay, Mom. And boy, at that time, my head whirled, and some little voice in me said, be careful what you say next, because he'll remember this for the rest of his life. And I thought about it, and I don't think I said anything, really amazing, like, wow, that was really something to come out with. I'm sure I asked him, I'm not sure that I understand. Can you tell me how you know this? And he was calm and he was cool, and he answered all of the questions that I had at the time. And he filled me in as best he could. And he said, there's nothing that you can't ask me that I haven't already thought of. He said, I know this is going to be hard. It's taken me a long time to figure it out. And you take all the time you need. Ask any questions that you want. He is an amazing person. That's all I can say. He made this process of recreating our vision of him and what his future was going to be like easier for us because of who he is. So that was kind of the process. And then
our little Snoop, we call him, Andrew, we had two ways of getting to our lower level downstairs, and Andrew snuck down the back way, and all of a sudden there was this big, like, scream or cry. And I don't know of what words Andrew heard, but he just became emotional. Well, then Hjordy heard that, and right away she had to react to that. And then at that time, I'm coming down from upstairs, which would be 2 floors above that, wondering what the heck was going on. And then Hjordy says, you have to go downstairs with Brad because I have to take care of Andrew. He heard something that maybe shouldn't have heard at that time. And so it kind of went from there. And I get downstairs with Brad, and we start talking. And by the time Hjordy came back, I would say 10 or 15 minutes might have went by or less. And Brad was kind of in fast forward then, because he started. And my question to him was, as he started talking, again, kind of like Hjordy said, where you want to be careful with those words. But I know I mentioned probably celibacy probably came out of my mouth, and maybe a worry of possible AIDS and things like that, because that was, back then, and those were my thoughts. And Brad just kind of, again, took me along. He was almost like the father, and said this and that. And he said, by the way, Dad, I have a plan. And, you know, the plan was he wanted to go to, in this case, Minneapolis, which is an hour and a half from us, and go there to live and to start a job. And it was like, as I listened, it started making sense. And then Hjordy comes down, and all of a sudden she goes from hearing this to her son's leaving the house, and it was just one of those nights that it was a wild night.
What did it remind you of? What movie?
Oh yeah, probably, I don't know if you've seen the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Sidney Poitier and Katharine Hepburn, and that was a chaotic night back in the day. That was like in the '60s, where, you know, there was a African American gentleman marrying a white lady, and all the, you know, the stuff that would go on with that at that time. Well, there was chaos, there was questioning, there was all these things happening, and that was kind of like in our house. I mean, it was that particular night was quite a night.
When I went up to see Andrew, he was laying face down in his bed crying. And so I just sat next to him and rubbed his back, and I said, you know, you heard something that Brad told me. And he said, yes. And he said, Mom, I'm gonna have 4, 5, 6 kids to make up for what Brad isn't gonna have. And I was so astounded by that remark, and I still am, that this young man, who also knew at that time that he was gay, would come out with a statement such as that to me. And I don't know if it was to comfort me, because he felt bad for that. I'm not quite sure, and I'm not so sure that he knows why he said it either. But of course, my response was, you don't have children for your parents, Andrew. And I said, you know, it wouldn't matter if you were gay. It doesn't matter that Brad's gay. And it wouldn't matter to us if none of you, if either boy did not have children, because that's your decision to make, not ours.
Often we hear that when young people come out, that they should have a bag packed, have some money put on the side, because most likely on that particular night or day, or whenever it is that they announce this, that they're probably asked to leave or to get out of the house. And in our case, in some ways it's kind of true, but it's in a flip-flop way, because Brad was leaving. You know, his mind was set that this is what I want to do, and since then it's been almost a perfect plan for him that way. But back then it was talk about fast forward, just mind spinning. The next day is interesting, because Hjordy and I then went to bed that night and probably didn't sleep much at all. We read a book called, what's the name?
Beyond Acceptance.
Beyond Acceptance. And we didn't read it that night, but that's a book that we read to help us through at that time. But we did have quite a few tears throughout the night. We probably slept a little bit. But the next morning we come downstairs, not so much just by waking up, but we started smelling something. Well, we go down, and hey, breakfast is being made. Brad's down there. He's kind of hopping around the kitchen. I mean, the world was lifted from his shoulders. He said, hey, how'd you sleep? Well, all he had to do was look at us. I mean, my hair was straight up, and Hjordy looked terrible that morning, and we just didn't sleep. Well, he had a full night of sleep, and again, the world was off his shoulders, and he was ready to go. This was like, if you want to call it, day one, and then we had to go from there ourselves.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm kind of jumping down my list here because you just covered so many points I kind of wanted to dribble into, but we just jumped in with both feet right there. I watched your interview on Twin Cities Live, and Paul, you blew me away. You know, because you have to understand, I'm a 53-year-old gay man.
Yes.
Who comes from a family of a retired military colonel.
Oh boy.
And a mother who's my grandparents on my mother's side were immigrants from Italy. And, you know, we were all baptized Catholic right after we were born, you know, blah, 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 blah. So you have to understand that I'm coming from that aspect. And for me, for a parent, especially a father, to be able to step out of that parent role and release that leading role to the son, because the father realizes that the son is more attuned to the subject. Well, all I can say is wow. So many folks, so many fathers could never do that, because of the macho, I'm the man crap.
Yep.
So I applaud you, because this spoke volumes towards your ability to unconditionally love your child. And let me play that sound clip from that, because I think this is awesome, and then you can comment on it.
Let me ask you, Paul, what was it like to hear those words?
Well, at first it's like you kind of freeze for a second, but you have to process that. You have to know that what you say at that moment is so important.
Oh, yeah.
And then you just kind of take it from there. One thing that I did right away was I put my parenting skills into Andrew, because Andrew now is the parent, and I'm the child or the son, because he's the expert here. No longer I'm not the expert at that, but listen to him, follow his advice, give my own advice that I have, but he's the expert, and Brad.
And that was really the way it was, because you know that they have been living this life for a long time, and again, I kind of think of it as, I'm the rookie. And he's the pro, he's the veteran, and you go from there. And you said it right, because it's to me, I find over this time and all these talks that we do, that a lot of the fathers are what I say MIA. They're missing in action. I know it's rough, but again, these are your kids, and you have a responsibility. And so I pray every day for all the fathers, because I am a father, and hopefully that something will happen. It's going to take time, but it's going to get better, and it's going to happen.
Well, it's just you said earlier, one of you, I don't remember which one, made a statement not too long ago here, a minute ago, that that you love, that it's about unconditional love for your child, and that when if the way I kind of grasp this whole thing, the way you folks, for me, I guess if I had to put it in a nutshell kind of thing, is that and what I thought that blew me away on this whole thing is that, to me, the way I perceive it from my research and limited reading, I get the feeling that you folks, that your take on this was more of a, if one person in the family is in the closet, then the entire family is in the closet.
Well, we feel that God entrusted these boys to us, and we had to do what was the very best for them. And it is tough stuff, when your child comes and tells you, and it's unexpected. But I say, that God has entrusted those two boys to us, and I think with the hopes that we would do the right thing by them. And the choice here is, you keep on loving your child and keeping them close to you and working through it, or you lose them. And I wouldn't be willing to lose those boys under any circumstance. There's absolutely nothing to do that would make us love them any less. So I think that was just a basic premise of how Paul and I feel about raising kids and about our commitment to our family, that moved right into this phase of our life.
Yeah, it's very easy. I mean, your concern, for some reason, and it always blows me away, because for me, there's the negativity, the negative responses to this type of situation far outweigh the positive responses like you folks had. And so it just blows me away, you know. And I don't want to minimize, you know, Hjordy's ability. If you folks that are listening hadn't figured out yet that they both these parents unconditionally love their children. But you know, I got another little sound clip here because I figured, you know, if I do a sound clip for Paul, I got to do a sound clip for Hjordy. You know, we got to be fair here, you know.
Right.
So, I don't want anybody to think I'm taking sides or anything. That damn Tommy's a sexist bastard. You know. You know. So, you know, I remember I was listening on when you were on Lucky Bitch Radio with Wanda Wisdom.
Oh.
Ah,
I love that name. I've been waiting all day to say Lucky Bitch Radio. You know?
she's wonderful.
Yeah.
She's wonderful. She's wonderful.
But in the interview, she stated how important it is to unconditionally love your children and to ask questions. You know, and Hjordy, I listened to you folks talk to Wanda, and I got to say you brought tears to my eyes when you spoke about the young Asian man. And let me play that clip because wow.
So why do you think then you find yourself here? What was the passion behind where you ended up with a book in your hand?
Oh, that's very clear. We want to help other people.
Yeah.
There are so many people that have written to us already, and our book is fresh out of the chute.
Mm-hmm.
And we are hearing absolutely heartwarming and heartbreaking stories, and stories of hope.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of young men have picked up our book and said, well, one in particular at Book Expo America, and we were in the line and he wanted it autographed, and we said, you know, fine, who to? And he said, you know, my parents haven't talked to me for a year. I'm no longer a member of the family.
Mm.
He was an Asian young man.
Mm.
Just the nicest young man, but there was just such sadness in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I hope this will change. So we hope so too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I took his hands, and I told him that he would not be out of our thoughts, and
His hands were shaking.
I will never forget that moment. I really won't. It's emotional now, I guess, but that's why we're doing this.
And that's it's so needed. It is so needed in our world. Oh, that just blew me away though. When I heard that, man, my eyes all welled up, you know, and a little tear leaked out of one side and went running down my face. I've always been told I'm overly sensitive, and they tell me like it's a bad thing, and I said, it's a good thing. You just don't understand it. Get out of my face. You know?
Yeah. We need more empathy, I think, in the world for people that find themselves in situations like this and other things in their life, and empathy is a wonderful thing.
Yes, it is. Empathy and compassion and love is the answer. I've always tell people on my shows, you know, we're all one human family. We all need to love our brothers and sisters, and that love will cure all the evils of the world. It's that simple. But
Yeah.
let me throw out your web address here. It's www.readyornotstories.com. And you can find links to get their book. Their book was launched in May of 2009. It's a 150-page book. Easy reading, folks. Easy reading. Get a copy. Is that available on hardback?
No, there's only one one style right now, and our publishers recommended this, and they said, keep the cost down so people can afford it. And we appreciate that advice because that's how we feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Even when we present, Paul and I were talking one day on a walk, and Paul said, Hjordy, how can we afford to go the places we want to go to bring our message to people? Or how can they afford us? And he said, this is a problem right now. And we came up with the idea then of our Skype presentations. And we are going to offer Skype presentations, which allows us to go any place,
Mm-hmm.
anytime, anywhere, and take the message into the smallest of towns, and they won't have the overhead cost. We won't have the overhead cost. All they have to do is buy, whatever book, depending on what group, if it's a family experience, and we are just talking one-on-one with family and family members, whoever wants to be in that room. It's private, it's personal, and hopefully we'll be able to answer their questions in a meaningful way to help them through whatever they may be going through. And so we are so excited about this because now we know we can go any place. And it's a
Worldwide.
wonderful opportunity.
Yep. Worldwide. That's
Worldwide.
that's awesome. I mean, even Oprah uses Skype, I mean, come on.
Exactly.
I got to ask you, when we were talking earlier about when Brad came out and then Andrew, the little snoop, was listening and ran upstairs crying and blah, 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 blah. Do you think the two had already shared their confidence between each other, like that Andrew already knew about Brad?
Andrew knew about Brad, but I don't think they shared confidences about it.
Andrew would try to out Brad with just little things. And there again, as parents, we're kind of there with the blinders on. Brad had his, let's call them girlfriends, whatever, and had a special one. I'll just make up a name. I'll say Susie. And, for us, that was like, okay, he's got his girlfriend here. And so we just had the blinders on. But Andrew would do that as a little brother, kind of thinking, okay, because maybe Brad would pick on him for who knows what, because being brothers, you do that, I guess.
Right.
Yep.
But he would gather evidence. He was the investigator. He would hear things, and Brad on the phone or something Brad was on the internet, and he would always bring that information to us. And in a way, it was kind of helpful because I think in our own way, we advised Brad on certain things about, be careful on the internet, who you contact and, what you say, information you give out, because in general, that's a dangerous thing for kids to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And he would have phone calls and Andrew would repeat, things that he said. Andrew was trying to tell us that Brad was gay in his own way. And because Brad would give us hints of heterosexuality, we'd say, well, it can't be because he's doing this. And so what I think happened is, Brad would get close to think maybe he's being found out here, and he would do something to make us believe otherwise. He just was not ready to tell us yet.
Right.
And our cardinal rule, of course, is, you don't out somebody and you don't push that outing until they're ready, unless you think that there might be a suicidal tendency or be afraid of that. And that's when I say there's an exception to the rule.
Yeah, or unless they're homophobic politicians or something like that.
Or something like that.
That's always an exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Andrew did know about Brad being gay than prior to that night that Brad told you folks.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I figured, when y'all said, well, we call him our little Snoop, he was listening in, and I was thinking, I wonder if he knew, what Brad was saying down there before, the fact.
Yeah.
If
But once it's said out loud, it has a different impact.
Yeah, I got to make a comment too about the Andrew saying to you that, don't worry, Mom, I'm gonna have lots of babies for you, and because one of my big things is caring when I was young, when I was very young and going through these feelings, is, oh my goodness, there's only two boys in the family. I had an older brother who's 5 years older than me, and there's four siblings in our family, two girls and two boys. And I was like, oh my goodness. And my brother was kind of the black sheep of the family. I says, he's such a loser. He's probably not going to have any kids. And then I'm going to have to carry on the family name. Oh, such a burden for a gay person to have to bear. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
how am I going to do this? What's going to happen? If my brother, well, finally he had a son. And we had this discussion the other day. It was, in fact, yesterday. I was talking to my brother about you and the interview I was going to do with you and about your sons. And I explained to him, I said, it was a lot of stress for me when I was younger about, carrying on the family name, something you want to do. Because to old school thinkers, lots of people probably cannot grasp the importance of that to old school thinkers.
Yes.
To carry on it's something you want to do for your family. Is carry on the family name. It's a righteous thing,
Mm-hmm.
And my brother says, well, I think my son's gay anyway. And I says, well, I don't think he is. I think he's bisexual. But whatever. I said, there's so many other options these days that it's a non-issue. But since our audience is a worldwide audience, and there are countries where this is definitely a very big issue. As parents, I noticed you already said, it's kids should never have kids for the sake of their parents. Any other additions to these points?
Well, I think it is a guilt factor sometimes for children, and it's a pressure point sometimes with parents. I was pressured by my mother saying, I'm not getting any older, don't you think it's time to have kids? And I swore I would never do that to my children because I felt this pressure from her about having grandchildren. And so my opinion about grandchildren was well developed early on that, you have kids because you want to have kids. And that is the simple, straightforward answer I've given the boys, because both of them want children, and they would both be amazing, amazing fathers. They are both extremely good with kids. At swim class, they used to call Andrew the Pied Piper. Those kids would follow him around, and they would do anything he asked of them. And one parent said, how do you do that? And he never listens to me, but he'll follow you anywhere. And they're magical with kids. They really are. But there are a lot of ways that you can enrich children's life without having children as well. And so those are decisions they have to make. And of course, their partners have to feel equally committed to that, because as when you have children, it changes your life and it changes your lifestyle, and you need to always keep them front and center in your mind.
And I know our family portrait might have a grandchild or two in the future. And if it does, we're ready for it. And the boys have seen us with kids. They know how we are. And but right now, one fulfilling thing for us is, and again, not saying that we have to have grandkids because that's not a non-issue, but some of our gay friends that do have children, we're kind of like the adopted grandparents right now. Yes, and we just love that. I mean, we get to play with their kids and be with them, and so that's very fulfilling as it is. And in Jason and Andrew's case, they have Ziggy. Ziggy's a dog, and right now that's kind of like our grand dog. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so really, so Paul, you're basically the same as Hjordy on this, and so neither one of you would take this to the next step. Neither one of you would actually be so concerned then, even if the grandchild was adopted. In other words, not the fruit of their loins. You know, in other words, they didn't use a surrogate or something like that to carry on the quote unquote DNA bloodline or whatever. That's also a non-issue.
That is a non-issue for us. We have a niece and a nephew who came from Colombia. We see nothing there. They are our niece and nephew, and we love them just as we love all of our nieces and nephews. And honestly, we've got a lot of nieces and nephews, and they are having children, and sometimes they have kept us very busy, and we love that. You know, it's very fun for us.
God, you know, it's no wonder y'all had two such wonderful children, because you're two such wonderful parents.
Well, thank you. We've made plenty of mistakes. Trust us on that.
You know, I also saw in the book, I saw something somewhere that says grandmother also speaks in the book. Whose mother is grandmother?
That's Hjordy's mom. And hey, here's a cool thing that's not in there, but she writes for the Minnesota Vikings. She's hired by the Rochester paper.
Not hired.
Well, but by the Rochester paper, their daily paper. She does a section in there along with about 6 or 7 other people that.
Oh, it looks like we experienced an unavoidable disconnect. We'll get right back with our conversation.
Again, sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay. Well, you know, it's interesting you should bring her up. You know, as Paul said, she writes this commentary, 87 years old, and she's writing for the Vikings and Packers. But Mom and Dad were the last family members that we told. And what a mistake that was. Because they were absolutely amazing. We could not ask for a better response from them and better support over the years. In fact, my dad had a quote for us that we have as the kind of the cornerstone of our book. And he said, you know, when I was sitting with him in the rest home one day, I said, you know, Dad, thank you for supporting, you know, Brad and Dad. And I just appreciate all the support you've given us. And he said, well, of course we did. He said, look at what we would have missed if we hadn't. And Paul and I have never, ever forgotten his words. And my mother feels the same way. In fact, not too long ago, someone came to her and said, you know, I've had a great day, but I need a good read now. And my mom pops up and puts the Ready or Not, Let's, you know, their gay book, and said, how about this one? And she said, the lady said, well, I guess I could. And she said, well, how do you feel about gays? And she said, well, you know, I don't know. And she said, well, you read this and you come back and talk to me. Which she did that night. It's a 4-hour read. It's quick. She came back the next morning, handed my mom the book, and said, thank you. She said, now I know how I feel. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Wow.
Her spirit, you know, she is not afraid to stand up and be counted on this. In the only way she can be, she is an advocate.
And here you're talking about a really strong, if you want to get political, Republican grandmother, lady. I mean, big time party backer, Methodist upbringing, but then with a situation like this, she has an open mind. Not saying that the other side could have an open mind or not, but here she is, 87, puts all those things aside and realizes that, hey, this is my grandsons, and this is what I'm going to do.
I'm so jealous. My mother's 88, about that age, and pretty close. And that would never happen.
Well, I think we're lucky.
We're lucky.
We are lucky people.
I might have to buy your book and give it to my mother.
There you go. Hey.
We'd love to talk to her.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe we Skype her.
No, she doesn't even. She had such a hard time. I got her to do an email for a while, and she got so frustrated that she didn't even want a computer in the house now.
Yeah.
So
they read at that age, and that is something that they're very comfortable with.
Yeah, I just to point out that the kind of person, or yeah, well, we don't even need to go there. Never mind. Maybe I'll bring it up later. Throughout the book are thoughts that support you folks and give to other families and to support them and their children. And I saw a statement that said other families and children who will have their own quote unquote October 29th. What is the significance of that October 29th?
That's when Brad came out to us.
Ah.
Right before Halloween.
Yeah. I also saw that there was a contributing author named Brooke Jordan. Who's Brooke Jordan?
Well, we have 5 contributing authors. Brooke Jordan has a brother who is gay, and she was the first line of support in her family for her brother. And at that time, it was really early on, and Brooke's mom and dad were struggling through this. In fact, they got a copy of our script before it was in its final format, just to perhaps help them, with their journey. And she is a friend of Brad's. We also have Cheryl, who has written an absolutely riveting account of her experience and her turmoil between church and being a lesbian. And she goes back and forth, and she reveals it in a way that you just feel like you are inside her head. And she was very analytical about it, and it was an absolute struggle for her, and you feel the struggle while you read her account. And then Kay Peterson, we call her our warrior mom, and she had a gay son, and he had lots of troubles in school with harassment and bullying and totally inappropriate things in his school. Well, with her support and her husband's support, he's doing well now. He's up in Minneapolis. And then she found out her daughter was a lesbian. And the interesting part of this is she's our massage therapist. And I overheard her talking about her son one day and about school, and you knew they were having troubles. And when she hung up, I said, sometimes when kids who are really doing well all of a sudden drop and things go downhill, it's a big indicator there's something wrong. And she said, oh, I know what's wrong. He's gay. And I thought, whoa, she doesn't know me well enough to say that. But that's the beauty of Kay, is she is an absolute supporter of her kids. And now she laughed when we saw her last. She said, well, I don't know, I might have to revise my story. She said, my daughter has realized that she isn't a lesbian. And I said, wow, here we go with revisions, huh? So we have some outstanding people. And of course, our former pastor, Janet, was really instrumental in giving Brad courage and confidence in himself as a person to be able to even come to us. And we will forever be grateful to Janet for what she did for us, for Brad, and you know, she's one of our heroes, and she's also a part of the contributing authors.
And recently we were up at her church and gave a talk to their congregation. And then also they do just a cool thing up there. They have, I think it's like once a month, they have like a popcorn night, and they bring in a book or a movie, a DVD type, you know, a movie on a GLBT issue, and anybody's invited, and they get a pretty good turnout. I mean, they get, you know, sometimes 25 to 50 people, and then they have a QA period afterwards, and so they're really doing some great things there. And again, she to us is so special because, you know, with her helping Brad during that time.
And you said this was a Methodist church?
Yes.
So, I know you say when you wrote your book that you kind of you told your story about the things you know and the things you left religion and science and blah 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 out of. So I have to, you know, I'm glad you brought up religion because I was chomping at the bits to talk about religion, quite frankly, because religion I think accounts for the vast majority of homophobia in our society. So were you always Methodist?
Well, Paul was, when we were married, Paul was Catholic and I was Methodist. And
now this would be like the early 70s.
Yeah. And of course that was a challenge for us as a couple at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mom told me, just don't date those Catholic boys. You know, because you know you can't marry them.
And I was told to watch out for the wild Methodist girls. They're loose.
That is certainly not true. But no, Paul, when we had Bradley, we decided we needed to make a decision. And so Paul turned Methodist, and really it was about what we believed as people, not what the churches believed necessarily. And we decided that our belief system was so similar. And it really was a matter of, hey, do we go to this church or this church because we like the service, or we like this or we like that? We know what we believe in, and we can probably worship in either one. Well, we ended up with a Methodist church and have been Methodist since probably 1975, with both of us being a part of the Methodist church since we were married.
And Tom, you said you were Catholic, is that right?
Well, I'm definitely non-practicing, but
okay. With myself, you know, because I was pretty much, you know, like the altar boy and the whole bit through grade school, and pretty much kept that faith up through middle college. But to this day, and I'm 59, I carry a rosary with me every day, and not actual beads. My hands are my beads, you know. So there's 10 beads in the rosary, and I say a rosary every day. And again, it's one little Catholic piece that I've kept with me, and that rosary is directed to a lot of different people in need, and it's just something that I've kept, you know. And I feel good about that, and I feel that it's doing good for others, and And so you just, you keep a little piece of that history. Even though I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore, I've kept that piece.
Yeah, I'm actually in process of looking up and trying to figure out how, and have contacted the Catholic Church regarding defection from the Catholic Church. I don't want my name associated with Catholic Church. Since I was baptized Catholic, and I know when they say, well, we have so many millions and millions of Catholics worldwide, that my name's in there somewhere, and they're counting me. And no, you can't count me. I don't want my name in there. So yeah, I'm in process of trying to basically have them put a stamp on my baptismal record saying I defected from the Catholic Church.
But you kind of said, the roadblocks, and we know that's there. I mean, there's a lot of roadblocks, and we've had opportunities now over the last probably 4 or 5 weeks to speak to various churches. In fact, last night we spoke to 8 churches at one church, but 8 churches were represented. And again, it's a whole different audience, but our pledge, our goal here is to talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime. And we never know what the questions are going to be, but you just, that's what we're committed to.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, religion is, well, that's a whole show all by itself, religion.
Yeah.
That's kind of, we kept the religious piece out of the book and the political piece, but we're not afraid to talk about it. And we've had situations, but that just, was one piece that we kept out.
We didn't want people to put aside our book because they didn't agree with some political or religious position we took,
Mm-hmm.
because our book is about love and acceptance.
Right.
And who can argue with love and acceptance? And that's the reason that we decided to stay away from that, because we didn't want distractions from reading the book, so people can move and improve and help and get help from it. Tom, have you ever seen the DVD Anyone and Everyone?
I don't think so.
That's a good one.
Got to get a Kleenex box.
That's 57 minutes of good stuff. And it's hopeful. I mean, it's very hopeful. Someone said after we viewed this that everyone in the United States should see that, and our world would change. And I believe that because it's so powerful. We give out a list of resources for people on the religious issue, and because, we're not the experts on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we recommend several of these just to open people's eyes a little bit into a different way of thinking.
Awesome. Yeah, I know there's a lot of accepting religions out there, and I personally have my own beliefs these days. I consider myself more of a spiritualist.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like I say, that's a whole nother show. Because the religion is so many. So I have to ask, while we're on this topic, is do you believe that a member of the GLBTQIA community, well, I guess not the I's, but the LGBTQ, I guess I should cut it off there, is born gay, or that this is that the sexual orientation is acquired?
Hey, day one. I mean, when they come out, that's who they are. It's just who they are.
We have a quote. Is it Desmond Tutu or Gandhi? No, it's Desmond Tutu. And he said, God knew you before you were born. No one is a mistake. That is what we believe. That however you are is how you were meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot be convinced otherwise on that one.
By anybody.
Good. Yeah, because there's so it's I agree, of course, I agree that and you know the problem is I think that so many people try to use a wide brush there's no absolutes in this world. So in other words, in my opinion, there are people out there that say they are gay that might not have been born that way. And in other words, I used to manage a gay bar and years ago. And I remember there was this one elderly gentleman that came into the bar quite often, and he was what I call a woman hater. Called himself gay, but I mean he couldn't stand the fact that it was a mixed bar. We had lesbians coming in there, and he was like, "Why do you let women in the bar?" I said, "Well, they're gay too, you know." I mean, that's, you know, so what? They don't tip very well. That doesn't mean we're not going to let them in, you know.
Well, you had a life experience just, being in a gay bar. I'm sure you've heard a million stories.
Mm-hmm. So this guy, it turns out that he had been married to a lady and had a couple kids with her for many years. So where I was going with this was the guy was married for 30, 40 years and to this woman, and she took him to the cleaners when they got divorced, big time. And you never heard a good word come out of that man's mouth about any female, lesbian, heterosexual. It didn't matter. If they were female, he hated them. So in my mind, you know, someone like that was probably not born gay. You know, it's there's exterior things that caused him to. I mean, what's he going to do? You know, I mean, if he's going to hate women, his next choice is guys. So.
Yeah.
I mean, unless he's going to go for farm animals or something. I mean, that's a little bit, a little bit far of a reach.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, there are, and that's where we get into the ex-gay reparative / conversion therapy stuff. I think there's a lot of bisexuals in the world, and everyone likes to use this wide brush for their strokes. You know that they're gay. They're all gay. You know, and there's definite distinctions in here, people, that you can't put us all in the same book and say just because A, B, C, D, line up 10 people and they're all gay and that's the end of the story. You know, that's might not be the truth at all. So it's there is no generalizations on this. That I think the majority of people that are truly gay are born gay.
Yes.
I think so too.
So, what do you think then when you hear someone use the word lifestyle, your chosen lifestyle? What does that do to you? Does that make your blood boil?
Yeah, I just don't like the word lifestyle, period, because again, lifestyle in my mind anyway is getting to where you're picking, you're choosing, and I just don't like the lifestyle word.
Well,
That's me.
And I think it's stereotyping.
Mm-hmm.
They have this stereotype of a gay lifestyle, and so we're at the point where we say now, what do you mean by that? And we say it nicely, but it's time to start calling people on that lifestyle deal, because the conversation goes on, and we say, if you spent time with our son Andrew and his partner, they wash clothes, they make meals, they take out the garbage, they argue once in a while,
Watch TV.
they watch TV, they work every day, and they work hard.
They go to bed, they wake up.
And, they go to movies, and they go to Disneyland, and, what is
what the hell
lifestyle?
What's different? I mean, it's,
It's one thing it's one phrase that sends me into orbit, quite frankly. But I try to be calm in my response, because I think part of this is people are so consumed with the stereotype that they've formulated that we need to break that egg open and say and challenge them a little bit to think about what they're saying and do it in a nice way. But I think awareness is a big part of what Paul and I are at least are trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. I couldn't have said it better myself. Wow. Oh.
You know, another thing, this is off the subject just a little bit, but as we talk to people, and even with our boys, I'm finding that for the young people to know, okay, when do I know this? Well, it's kind of like when you have those dreams, those dreams of, dreaming about a sex dream, a wet dream, whatever you want to call it. But all of a sudden, that person that you're with, like for myself, it was with a girl. But if I was with a guy, then that tells me something, or a girl with a girl. And I think at that age, and a lot of times that age is what nowadays it seems to be about 12, 13, 14. And I think that's kind of what I'm finding anyway is a period of when you kind of really know who you are.
That's how we tell them that kiddingly. No, we don't take this too seriously. That's kind of the litmus test.
Yeah.
When you dream, do you dream about a boy or a girl?
Right. And a good litmus test too. And so many can't even. It's still though. I think irregardless, society. It's getting better and better and better. The TV thing, or the friends or the school, and we hear like I don't know that what is that. And Tango makes 3. Making so much waves in the schools these days.
Yeah. It's the most censored book on gays.
Mm-hmm.
There. And
the king and I, or the king, something about king.
Yeah.
But it's terrible. I did a show back around last Christmas. In fact, it was on the first day of Hanukkah. I did a show on homosexuals and the Holocaust. And when I was in school, I graduated from high school in 1974, and I never knew there was homosexuals in the Holocaust. It was all a Jewish thing, is all we heard about in school.
Mm-hmm.
So I did this special on homosexuals in the Holocaust because that was always has been a bee in my bonnet. And last Christmas time, I did this special, and I was shocked because I had several regular listeners that were in their early 20s, and every single one of them said, "We had no idea." And I was so pissed off at the school system, that here we are, 35 years later, and they're still not teaching the kids about homosexuals and the Holocaust, you bastards.
Well, you'll be happy to know that Eau Claire, Wisconsin does. And,
Yay.
And a recommendation on that one is paragraph 175.
Mm-hmm.
It's a documentary. Have you seen that one?
That was, in fact, my show was the complete audio track of paragraph 175 with me voicing over the translations.
Good
Great.
for you.
Yeah, I put a lot of work into that. In fact, people told me we've never seen anybody do that on one of these talk shows. And that's one of my best shows. It's in my list of the best of gay talk radio. And that's
Good for you. Congrats.
Yes.
Yeah. Paragraph 175 is an awesome documentary, and I do have that show out there available. It's available 24/7, where people who haven't seen the movie or don't want to purchase it or can't purchase it can go hear the audio track on that show I put in last December. And you can get that at gaytalkradio.org, in case you didn't know.
There you go. And we'll advertise that as well, because that's important to know. Thank you for telling us that.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome. It's an awesome piece, but I was so freaked out when I had I never realized, when they heard those people, because there's only like probably less now, but back when they made paragraph 175, there was only like 10 or 11 homosexual Holocaust survivors left in the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep. And I heard you say on one of your interviews that you did that you had heard from P-Flag that there was over like 400,000 GLBTQI homeless out there. I've actually heard much higher numbers. I've heard that 40% of all homeless in the United States, which is supposedly around 4 million or more, 40% of them are LGBTQIA.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's even more disturbing.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot more than 400,000.
Ugh.
40%. And it was from a study that was done in major inner cities. So that might not be a good number for, I think the study was done in New York. So I think in New York that was the number. So who knows? Maybe it's just major metropolitan areas where the percentage is that high, but I did a show where I had this preacher came on, and he was highly impressed with my show, and he actually called himself Bishop Long, and he came on to one of my shows, and he says, Tom, I had to come. He made me cry on my show. The only time I think I've actually cried. I've gotten kind of teary and sniffly, but I cried when he came on the show, and he told me about this young man who had come out to his parents, and they had thrown him out of the house, and he was suicidal. And the preacher told him, go listen to Tom's show. And the young man came and listened to my show, and my show saved his life.
Oh, boy.
And, if I never do any good for anyone else, as long as I live, that one is enough to carry me on. I tell you, just saving one life, saving that young boy's life. And we actually had an email conference, and he told me, he said, I wanted you to know at one point I had a gun in my hand.
Oh, my goodness.
And then he was like 15 or 16 years old, and I think the bishop helped get him some counseling and helped find him some housing, and he got a job, and I haven't heard any more from him. He wanted to stay in touch, but as a gay man and being in my early 50s, I guess I got my own little problems with talking to these young kids, and it's partly because of society. Well, all homosexuals are pedophiles, so anytime I got that in the back of my mind that anytime I talk to a youngster, someone's going to think, I might get accused of being a pedophile. They'll throw me in jail. I better watch that.
That's just, there are so many misconceptions, and I was going to mention how important what you did is, to that boy. That's obvious. But a social worker told us that one advocate can mean the difference between life and death. And you just gave an example of that. And so our advice to people always is just never turn your back on someone who needs your help, because it could mean the difference between life and death. And we tell the teachers that if a student is reaching out to you, you need to keep the door open for them and let them know that you're there for them, because it might be that small difference between what a person taking their life, like those two sweet little 10 and 11-year-olds this year asked, and they took their own life by their own hand. And these are horrible stories to hear, but I think our society needs to hear them, and they need to hear them with a strong voice, because we can't afford to lose our children like that, and we can't afford to kick them out of our houses. I mean, I don't even understand that.
Oh no, I mean, when I was working in the bar, I met many people and heard many stories, like you mentioned earlier, and I'll never forget. One of my best friends that I made there in that time was a Hispanic young man who was abused by his stepfather, sexually abused by his stepfather. And when he decided to come out, of course, the family disowned him and threw him out of the house. So he was 14 years old, and he had to stoop to prostituting himself on the streets in order to get by.
Oh,
Yeah, it was bad deal. But yeah, I mean, all this kid, the one all he had to do was he heard my show. He said, "Wow, here's a openly gay man that's out here just talking to the world, telling them the world news about what's going on in the gay world and blah blah blah." Just like there's no walls up. He's just out there and just being himself. And if he can do that, then so can I. You know, and that's all it took was that seeing someone else that was in his same classification or group that could just be out and open and speak up and out and not be ashamed.
yeah. Kudos to you.
Thank you, thank you. That I'll never forget that moment as long as I live.
No.
I also saw in some of the stuff I looked up, um, you know, that it said on the subject of religion, after Brad came out, Hjordy sought guidance from a brother-in-law who is a minister and counselor who helped her find spiritual peace. She wrote that she is reassured Brad is loved and supported by his Lord. So I'm guessing that the before, you know, you spoke with the brother-in-law that you kind of fell hook, line, and sinker for all the clobber passages and stuff. Brother-in-law who is a minister and a counselor, and it says he helped you find spiritual peace, stating that you now are reassured that Brad is loved and supported by his Lord. So before that point, before you were reassured to find your spiritual peace, I'm these all the I'm sure you're aware what the clobber passages are, like
Yes.
What is it, Leviticus 18:20 or whatever, and
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So I'm guessing before you spoke with him that you kind of took all those to heart. You took them literally.
Well, it was one of the scary things, Brad's spiritual health. And I was ignorant at that time of so many issues. I mean, I didn't even know what I didn't know. And I just needed to talk to my brother-in-law because I knew that he would help me. And it was the next night, and I just needed to have some instant answers.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, since then, I've done a lot of research, and, I could give a much better response if my child were to come out to me. But at that time, I didn't have that knowledge base in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's the important part for parents is to go out and research and learn. And that's important not only for the parents of gay children, but it's important for all of us to go out and find our own truth. And I'll share with you, Paul's opening it right now, and he's going to tell you about a book that everybody should have.
We just came across this book. We were at West Bend, Wisconsin a few weeks ago.
Ooh, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
So I'll wait for that. But we were there, and a Presbyterian minister was in the crowd, and he brought this book up to us, and I had no idea what it was. It was called the Blue Book, and it's actually blue on cover to cover, and he brought it to us and said, use this any way that you want. I said, fine. I didn't have time to look at it, read it, because we were busy with our book signing, talking, whatever. And when you go in this book and you go through it, there are like 6 questions. And the question is asked, and then he has a page number. You go to the page number, then it probably has like 1 or 2 or 3 quick hitters, and then he gets into that topic. Like I just took number 11 here. Why are there different sexual orientations? Then he has ... 3 bullets, piece of information. Then they talk about it, and it's just it's and it gets into the religious part, gets into a lot of different avenues. I'll give another one, number 32. What other rights do gay people lack? And then it goes right down the list. There's like 6 bullets here, and then it gets into all this other stuff. And it's to answer those questions fast.
It's the best of the best. And the address on the web is pcmk.org. And you can actually view that document online. This is not a moneymaker for them. This is a mission for them. And it's one of the best things I have read, of course, other than our book. But as far as information, this is the best of the best.
Here's number 48, Tom. What did Jesus say? What did Jesus say about homosexuality? Dot underneath. Jesus had nothing to say about homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And then it talks about it.
Yep, not a single word. In fact, the word homosexual was not even in any biblical version until the 1940s.
Right.
None. None whatsoever. And, so people need to stop and think that every Bible is a version of the Bible.
That's right.
Right. It's people say, well, I always love it when people tell me, well, you can't pick and choose from the Bible, Tom. And I said, well, you do. Everyone does. Every single day, we all pick and choose from the Bible. When's the last time a child got stoned for being rude to the parent?
Every sermon at church.
I'm like, give me a break. They want to throw Leviticus at us, but they ignore the chapters on either side of the one they're quoting to us about the eating of sailfish and pork and planting 2 crops in the same field and wearing linens of mixed fibers, blah, blah, blah.
All those things, by the way, are in this blue book.
Uh-huh.
It's great. Because, finally it puts things in perspective, in historical perspective. And I think it's if people will be willing to open up their mind to look at it and read it, I think it will make great sense to them.
Yeah, and I always got to throw out when we're talking about the Bible. They say 1 man and 1 woman. You know how many polygamists there are in the Bible? Let's start with Solomon, and go on from there. There's many others. Then of course we can mention concubines for those kings, on and on, and male and female concubines. And then the story of Jonathan and David that I think is a gay love story in the Bible. But, I'm sorry. I don't want to get too far off on that. Sometimes I think I know more about the Bible as a gay man than lots of people that are quoting the Bible to me,
Yes.
Since Paul brought up West Bend, the Fireside Books and Gifts in West Bend received boycott threats and protests prior to y'all making an appearance there. Wow. Now that's when you know you've been successful.
Well, it was successful. We had the largest book signing event in the way of people and in the way of books sold that Fireside has had in 15 years that they've done.
All right. You go.
So we like a little controversy, I think. It served everybody well. And the other thing that's interesting about that is on July 20th through the 24th, the West Bend controversy and the blog around that was the third most viewed blog on the internet during
Wow.
that time.
Is West Bend in Wisconsin?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
north of Milwaukee.
All right. Wow.
But, you
So
know,
they actually had protesters outside when you were there, huh?
they
No.
had a security, a policeman was there, but being public or private property, they would have to be out on the street. It was a rainy day, and I don't think anybody showed up. I really don't. And, you know, a lot of times that's that cowardly way. You know, you get on the internet and say things, you know, through, and so I that's just me. But oh, I lost my train of thought. Jordy, jump in.
Well, all I can say is I love the people of West Bend. The people that were there were sincere. They were listeners.
Great
they
questions.
asked great
Yeah.
questions. And we had an absolutely fabulous experience with them, and we will never, never forget that. And our perception of West Bend is there are so many good people there. And, you know, in fairness to what was going on there, the lady who had a complaint with the public library, I do believe it started out sincere. I think it was a way she wanted to protect her child. And you can agree or disagree with that. It's her right to do that. But other people got a hold of her and advised her, and all of a sudden that one book turned up to be 83 books because someone put fuel in her tank. And I feel sorry for her because I think she was used by people who like to censor books. And it's such a dangerous thing in our society to have books censored. And we went to a discussion not too long ago in Eau Claire about pre-censoring by librarians and media specialists. Our book was never reviewed by School Library Journal and Book List because our publisher did not send our book in time, and they have these rules, which I think are a little ridiculous. But now we're faced with this pre-censor attitude of librarians and teachers being afraid to have our book in their library. So now we have the tedious task of virtually writing to every school librarian and
Across the United States
with reviews that we have gathered from various spots where our book has been reviewed, sending that to them with the hope, first of all, that they'll read it, and secondly, that they'll have the courage to put it on the shelf. And it's so disappointing to us because this viewpoint needs to be there, and we need to have books for kids who are working through this, and we need them for their parents.
Yeah, the kids are being cheated here, if you want to use that word. Parents, you know, for help, and but we're going to do our darndest to somehow get it in this review, and hopefully they can open the door and say, okay, we'll make an exception, because right now it's schools are really slow on getting this in.
And we certainly hope that School Library Journal and Book List put our book aside. We hope they didn't put our book aside for other reasons. I really do. People have questioned that with us. And I would have a hard time believing that because there's some association with ALA, but I don't know why, even though it was sent late, they know that we don't have a chance with librarians until we get a review from them. And yet, they won't review it for whatever reason.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. You know, I read a story not too long ago about a kid that was at some school. I don't remember if it was high school or junior high. He was wanting to research and a homosexuality. So he went and looked at, what do they call that? The Dewey Decimal System, or
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, and he was looking at the little card file things, and
Hmm.
he found all these books they had listed that they claimed, and he went and looked, and none of them were on the shelves, and he actually had to go ask the librarian,
Yeah.
and the librarian was like, well, we keep all those locked up, and
Yeah.
gave him that look, like, what do you
Yeah.
want to look at these books for, and I mean that they're acting like they're soft porn or something, I mean that's anyway, that's that, and they wouldn't allow him to check the book out, take it home with him. He had to read it there in the library and return it back to them personally before he left, so that they could lock it back up again.
Well, there's a lot of pre-censoring and self-censoring going on, and just by the books that are selected to go into a collection, um, there's a certain amount of bias that goes into that, and you can't help it because we're human. But I think you need to be aware of it, so you can overcome that bias. And if you have a good library collection, there should be books that are personally very offensive to you. And then you probably will pass the litmus test of, do you have a balanced collection?
That's wow, yeah, excellent way to put that. Excellent. Oh, goodness gracious. That's just, censorship to me, I just, when I think of libraries, I just don't think censorship it's bad enough they're censoring what they're teaching, and I could give them the benefit of the doubt there because of time restrictions and because of the classes, most school class sizes these days, the numbers, that number of students each teacher has to have, it's hard to give any kind of personal attention, I'm sure. Uh, so there are time constraints there in the classroom setting. But in a library, I just don't believe there should be censorship.
Yeah.
Like you say, yeah, if you're not offended by anything in your library, then you must have a pretty crappy library.
Another way of putting it.
I liked one of the statements you said in here, and it kind of gives food for thought and makes your mind go 10 different directions. I saw in the AARP article about you folks, and it quotes you, Hjordy, I believe, is saying, because you cry about this doesn't mean you don't love your son or daughter. It means you're mourning what you thought would be their life, while at the same time recreating a new vision for their life.
We heard through another person a term called ambiguous loss, and that made a lot of sense to us because, up to a certain time you have this vision, like let's say in Brad's case, because Brad was our first to come out, that we kind of thought Brad would be this, and that. And then all of a sudden, we have this talk, when he talked to Hjordy downstairs, and then when I went down, and then life changed. And so that there was an ambiguous loss because in our minds we had these certain visions, which everybody would have for their kids. But, as time went by, recently I had a nephew that mentioned an ambiguous gain. He said, maybe it's an ambiguous gain. And now that I look at it, like with our boys, I would trade nothing. I would trade nothing at all. It's just the way it's been, and it's been in my mind magical and rewarding, tears and joys and all the things that go with it. And so I think, yes, there is an ambiguous loss, but you'll get through it, and then all of a sudden that loss will change to gains.
I think you were talking about Brad, and you said when he was younger we had this pony where he was combing the mane of the pony, the little toy, and you hid it from him, and he found it, and you were saying, if that, with your knowledge that you have now, in that same situation were to repeat itself, you'd probably be down there helping him comb the mane of the pony instead of trying to hide it from him.
Yep, that's one of those if you want to call them playbacks or whatever, because I, that was the dad back then that would hide that, and because that wasn't manly, I guess, or whatever, and I, that's just what I did. And then Brad would find it, and I'd hide it again. And again, if I could take it back, I'd be sitting next to him right now, back at that age, and have my own little pony with him and be combing away. And it's just, that was then.
Right.
I can think back something that I don't think is on there, but when Brad went to kindergarten, he gravitated right to the kitchen area, where they have the stove, the kitchen, the different cooking things like that, because at our house, that was kind of a special area. Well, he was escorted by the teacher at that time. She took his arm, walked him over to the trucks and the tractors and said, "This is where the boys play, not in the kitchen." Well, Hjordy and I looked at each other and kind of nodded at one another and walked over, got Brad, didn't say anything, walked out of the school. Well, Brad didn't go to that school. He didn't. We had to pull a few strings because that was our neighborhood school, but he went to a different school. So again, a stereotyping type situation that just wasn't so good.
Awesome. So you pulled him out and moved him to another school, huh?
That's right.
Cool. And regarding parents now, since you're parents, we often hear one of the first responses the parents have when they're told that a child is part of the LGBTQIA community. What did I do wrong? Did either one of y'all have that one?
I don't believe that ever came out of our mouth. And I don't remember having conscious thought that we did something wrong. I think more so, we might have thought, I hope that we didn't cause him pain all those years because we weren't welcoming enough for him to tell us that he was gay. The thing that hurt us both the most was the fact that he went through all of this pain and anguish, thinking about this by himself, and then thinking about how it would be to tell us. And, we always felt that we taught the boys to respect everyone, no matter where they came from, what color their skin. And I think the boys both felt, that we were very open-minded to and respectful of other people. But that was the anguish for us, is did we do something to prevent him from coming to us at that time? And that was troubling.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of along that, in a way, would be both boys, they were involved with everything that you can imagine. I mean, through sports, I was their coach for like soccer and baseball, basketball, different things, and each one had a little bit different interest, but we did a lot of those, quote, traditional activities, and right down the list. I mean, it was like, okay, because so often people will say, well, they must have did this or that along the way, playing a certain way or who knows what. No, I mean, with us, it was like everything was just, sometimes we say like the Leave It to Beaver, the Ozzie and Harriet type setting, and it was, so it's, there's no remorse whatsoever on anything.
That's awesome. That's the way it should be. That's for sure.
I gotta share one with you. Brad will probably get mad, but that's okay. But we would go to the college games here in town, and we'd be up in the kind of like the midpoint, half court line area, and Brad would always ask, "Can I go down by the court?" And we'd say, "Yeah, just be careful." Well, then he'd go down by the court, walk across the court to the other side where the student base was, but near the cheerleaders. And he was fascinated by the cheerleading part. Well, again, here I am as a dad sitting back there thinking, okay, he should be watching the game more and not the cheerleaders. But then, that's just the thought process that went through my mind. And then even at home, because at some of the games you'd get the pom-poms to shake during the game to help the team and whatever. Well, he'd bring those home, and he was more excited about those for up to a period of time. And then that disappeared. And then, like I said, eventually then Brad, okay, yeah, I'd like to try basketball. And so we tried it, and then I'd like to try swimming. And then I kind of saw, okay, it's kind of hard to do both. Well, then that's when I became the coach. I was the coach for the basketball team, so he could get the taste of both. And then sometimes I'd even let him go like at halftime of a game, because then he had a swim meet someplace else, and then Hjordy would probably take him off to the swim meets. So all the choices were there for the different things, and again, nothing in my mind of the upbringing of either one of the boys. It was as normal as can be.
I didn't even think about that aspect of it. I mean, God, their parents were their teachers too. The amount of time, they spent with you folks that y'all weren't gnawing at each other's throats like, I want to kill you. Most of the time, when you spend so much time with someone, it's like, yeah, that can sometimes not be too
Well,
helpful.
we were apart for 8 hours every day while we worked, so, the time we were with all four of us together, we really valued that.
Uh-huh.
In fact, parents used to complain about having to pick their kids up, take them to swim practice and then pick them up from swim practice, and all the time it took. Swimmers are pretty devoted. And I said, you know what? I love that time, because I have Andrew in the car, or Brad, and it's our time together, and we talk about things, because that's what we do in the car. And I said, it's treasured time, not time that you should hate.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now things are different. People are, on their cell phones and doing crazy things in cars that they shouldn't be doing in the first place. But at that time, those were treasured times when we could be together.
That's cool. Yeah, I love swimmers. I used to have a swimmer friend in high school, and yeah, I know I'm a kinky pervert, but he used to let me shave his body before the swimmers, and because I said the hair slowed him down or something, and when they're swimming, so yeah. I was like, he wasn't gay. We never did anything sexual, but I tell you what, when I was shaving his body, I sure wasn't thinking pure thoughts.
Oh yeah.
Andrew had quite an incident at a state swim meet. He was in the finals for his backstroke, and he was in the bathroom and in a stall, and all of a sudden he heard something, and he looked up and he saw someone jump down, and he saw a camera case. And we later found out that someone who really was a pervert was hanging around those swimmers in the hotels and at the swim meet, taking pictures and such.
Oh, wow.
And so, and pretending to be a photographer, reporter from this area. And one of the swimmers saw him in Madison, Wisconsin, called the police. They picked him up and they caught him. And this was probably 3 months after the incident happened. But, there are people out there that don't have the best interest at heart here, and you have to be smart about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, there definitely are. That's kind of sad, but there again, I get into the, because so many people might hear that same thing. See, I told you, them gays are all like that, and there we go with the wide brush again,
We don't know if he was gay or not, but he was doing something inappropriate,
mm-hmm.
with high school kids, and I don't know. I guess I never asked the question, if they found out what his orientation was or what he was up to. We really never heard much about it after that.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's just about safety of your kids in general.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. The let's see here. Now, P flag. I heard y'all talking about, the pull and tug and the from having to decide whether you were gonna attend the Wizard of Oz event or the Pride event.
Well, they kind of have some roads that cross, don't they? Roads that cross.
Right now, we're almost sitting in what I call Oz land. Our whole downstairs is Wizard of Oz. We have big glass curio cases, and we have things in the cases from, the first book was written in 1900 to present day. And these are like figurines, dolls, books, glass stuff, who knows what. And that's a passion of ours. And so, yeah, during that time, that was a tough one because our hearts were in two places. Our hearts were up there with the Munchkins because some of the Munchkins still do come up there. They're still alive. And every once in a while we get a visit from some of the celebrities, like Judy Garland's kids still come up there, Joey Luft and Lorna Luft. Liza's never been there. We kind of wish that she would come up. This is up at Grand Rapids, Minnesota. And so here we are at the Pride Parade instead in Minneapolis. But if you talk about the best decision, that was the best decision. That's where we were meant to be. But, heart in two different places, yes.
Hmm. So I know that on that particular event that I was hearing about, you were having a booth where. Have you ever marched in a Pride Parade?
No, we've only been participants. In fact, we were a participant on the side, as a viewer in New York City. And Brad recently kind of was laughing about that. And he said, I'm getting feedback.
Sounding okay on this side, a little bit distant right now, but.
Okay. He said it was kind of funny because Andrew wanted to watch the parade. And he didn't know he was gay at the time. I'm getting awkward back here.
Yeah, it's coming and going on the sound on this side too. You want to disconnect and reconnect again?
You're as clear as can be.
Well, let me try again. Yeah. Now it sounds fine.
Yeah, cleared up now.
Okay.
Feedback.
I'll say it again. Andrew really wanted to stay for that parade. And Brad laughed about that. He said, I couldn't figure out why he wanted to stay. I was the one that was gay. And it was a long, long parade in New York City. But quite frankly, we have never belonged to a P flag because there isn't one in our area. And we have associated ourselves a little bit with P Flag Minneapolis now. And we've done a presentation there. Brad's been on the board for a while. And so we've been a participant there. And if we didn't have a booth this year, we would have been in the parade with them.
And probably will be in next year.
Okay, well, do me a favor, because, I tell you what brings tears to my eyes in the gay parade is when I see a parent or a grandparent or whatever with a simple sign that says, I love my gay grandson, or I love my gay sons, or I love my lesbian daughter, holding up that's a very moving thing for me, because I don't feel that from my family. So I guess it's personal with me that when I see that, it makes my eyes water up, because to see a straight parent or grandparent, holding up a sign of pride, and smiling and waving, and it's just, the support, feels really, really, really good.
Yeah, we heard that a lot from people that would stop at our booth there, and they would say the same thing. The most emotional part was when the P flag came through with all of the open advocates and allies for them, and they said it strikes an emotional chord with them. And we're so sorry that that isn't your experience, because everybody deserves to have family that loves and cares about them. And we do that in different ways, of course. But I'm sorry for you that you don't have that.
Well, I've learned to live with it. It's just that's each person's welcome to their own opinions, and my mother is my mother, and nothing's going to change that, and she is going to be what she is going to be, even if it's to the point it feels a little insensitive towards me quite often. That's okay.
But I would say to you, don't give up. We heard a remarkable story from a CEO of a company, and he told us the story. He was in the military and then did a lot of things over his life, and now he has a business. And his complete family shunned him because he was gay. And his mother called him 5 years ago and said, come to have lunch with me. And so he went to have lunch, and she said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way I've behaved. And he said, it's okay, Mom. He said, we're going to start now. And they did start now, and he shepherded his mother through the next 5 years of her life. He was there for her when she died, holding her hand where the rest of the family couldn't be there. He took care of her. And so our motto with everybody we meet is never, never give up on those that love you and that you love them, because you never know when that corner is going to be turned.
Yep.
Well, that's true, and who knows? She might have turned the corner. I mean, I know quite well that she's came to my side to a certain extent, but there are limitations.
Yes.
I'm not going to say she's totally that we argue and fight and scream every time we talk. That's not the case at all. We talk fairly regularly still. I mean, she's down in Texas. I'm up in the Pacific Northwest. And if she became ill, I'd be there for her. The other stuff we wanted to talk about was your other projects that you have coming up.
We're excited about our cards, Ready or Not, discussion cards. And these are 86 different questions or statements. We use them in our presentations, and they're so successful for getting people engaged in it, because we find so often that it's difficult for people to talk about this topic. It's just not something that they've done before. And so we've been very pleased at the reception of these cards, to use in families, to use at churches, to use in school groups and gay straight alliances, P flags, whatever it might be.
But think to yourself, like sitting around a coffee table or a dining room table, lunch table, whatever, and you get a card, you read the question, and then someone in that circle hopefully will answer, or the rule might be everybody has to answer that question. And our one rule is the person that reads the question gets an out, doesn't have to, but the others have to. That's our rule. And then you go on to the next question. And it really helps to break the ice and just get that conversation going. And I think like with group discussion groups with kids, that type of thing, it's pretty powerful.
An example of one of the questions is, one of your coworkers is gay, yet he continues to pretend he's straight. Do you let them know it's okay with you, or do you just leave it alone? And then people talk about that, and they, and of course we interject our feelings on it or what our experience would be. And we've just got 86 cards, and we just have had so much fun with them. And the other thing that we're doing, and we hope we can do it successfully, is our Skype tour. And again, we said this earlier, we really want to reach as many people as possible. Just this week we had 5 presentations in 3 days. And people are hungry for this information. They're hungry to first identify what the issues are, and secondly, to identify what they can do with it. And oftentimes we hear, we'd like to do something, we just don't know what the right thing is. And so we try to guide them into some ideas and some ways that you can ask questions that aren't your heterosexual questions. They're generic questions. Instead of saying, so does Andrew have a girlfriend? Ask instead, does Andrew have someone special in his life right now? And learn to talk more generically so you don't offend someone immediately with a question or make them feel uncomfortable. And so we talk about things like that, and talking about the wall. Paul and I will say, hey, what did you do this weekend? And Paul...
And I saw the DVD Milk.
Most of the time, if people are uncomfortable, the wall comes up and they say, oh.
And that's it.
So instead we say, answer it with a simple little phrase. When you don't know anything else to say, just say, tell me more about that. That's all you have to say, and you've opened up the door.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When you say, oh, you have completely shut the door. The person will not trust to talk to you about anything because they've gotten the signal from you that you don't want to talk about it.
Right.
Whether it's the right signal or not, that is the signal to them that, no more talk about that. And trust me, we have had tons of those signals thrown our way. And we used to protect people. We don't do that anymore. We are honest about it, and we've decided that, if this isn't our problem, if they don't want to hear it, that's on their end. And we don't do that anymore. But there was a time that we did. So we're excited to be doing our live presentations, our Skype presentations, and trying to get into the lives of people to make a difference at church, at the workplace, at schools, and of course with families. It's our mission, and it's going to be our mission until we can't do it anymore.
That's awesome. Yay! And then you gotta, I saw one of the questions on one of the cards on one of the articles I read said something like, if you could have a conversation with God about gays and lesbians, what do you think he would say? And Paul puts in a note, offer no answers.
Yeah. Well, he was kiddingly saying, we should probably have another set of cards with the right answers. But that's not, what these are designed. It's designed to open up conversation with people and get them thinking and do that awareness thing, sensitivity training, So it serves really a lot of purposes.
The other thing, too, is I'm noticing, the more that I wear something that shows that I'm an ally, like let's say it's the wristband or whatever it might be, something in my car, I'm finding more and more people, like if I go to pay for something at a store or whatever, and they notice those things, and they're that's cool, and I really like seeing that on your wrist, and so I think the more you can do things like that too, just to show, may it be a classroom in a school, and all of a sudden you have like a rainbow, by the teacher's name or wherever it is. It just gives more people a chance to know, hey, that's a safe place to walk into, or maybe I have this thing that's bothering me, and that's an ally, that's someone I can talk about this feeling, and so we're discovering that too. That's very powerful.
We recently heard that 50% of the people believe that gay is the same difference to them as straight. Makes no difference to them. 50%. And Paul and I looked at each other and said, where are these people?
Yeah.
And I think what's happened is you have got that 50% out there. I don't argue with that, but I think we have too many silent allies.
Yeah, they're not vocal.
They're not speaking up, and we're trying to give people confidence to speak up and be heard and stand up for what you believe is the right thing. And I think if we have more of the voice of that 50%, that's going to make a big difference in the lives of GLBT people and those who love them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would.
We have to work on this young generation coming up. I mean, the kids, if there's going to be a change, they're going to be the change makers. And that's the way it's going to be. And so, we have to keep doing what we're doing, and I think they are going to be the ones. And example would be just not too long ago, I don't know if it was Oprah or whatever, but there was a young lady that was having a hard time with some kids on the bully aspect. And I don't know if it was a gay issue or not, but it was a bully aspect. And the parents got so upset that they took the child out of this private school, took her to the public school. Well, it just so happened that, hey, schools go to field trips different places, and these two schools met up again, and sure enough, these girls came, saw this one girl that they were picking on before, and they were going to do it again. Well, then the new kids at the new school that she's going to stepped in and said, that's not right. This is how we've been taught at this school to deal with situations like this, and just fuse the situation right there. And so it's, the kids, whatever we can do, that's where I think the change is.
But never underestimate also people's ability to change. Gandhi has a quote similar to this: we are the product of our thoughts, what we think we become. Our box of books got mixed up with someone who went to Book Expo America, and we talked over the phone, and he said to me, I understand that you have written this book. And I said, yes, we have. And he said, well, I used to be terribly homophobic. And I said, so what are you now? And he said, I'm an advocate. And I said, how in the world did you jump from homophobic to advocate? I said, that is a big swing. And he said, well, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, is this how you want to be defined? And the mirror answered, So he said, next I had to figure out a strategy because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to change. And he said, so I went out and I found myself a gay friend. And we did become friends. And I hung around with him for a good year. And all of a sudden I thought to myself, what's happened to me? Because all those stereotypes just went away. And he said he's a great person. He was a good friend. And he said, now I've gone from an obnoxious homophobic to an obnoxious advocate. But I find this story absolutely amazing, and it gives me great hope.
That's awesome. Oh, hey, I just had something come to mind here about your computer issue. That's a little bit off, but do you have like a screensaver or something that goes on or happens at 18 minutes? Or...
Oh, well, I wonder.
I want to just move your mouse once in a while, to make sure that doesn't happen, because
Yeah.
maybe something like that's happening.
Okay, thanks for the tip. I'll try that too.
Yeah,
Earlier you talked about,
I'm sorry?
earlier you talked about Brooke, and I'm thinking of her dad right now. And talk about a great person. I mean, her dad is, well, Hjordy can probably say it better than I can, but he is an advocate and ally 100%, and just again has gone the full circle. And I mean, just kudos to him.
We're proud of that whole family.
Yep.
They've come a long way, and sometimes it's just a matter of time.
Yep.
You just got to give people time to figure it out, and different people have different timetables.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, I mean, I think the problem is so many people just have become so complacent in so many things in our society, and this is just another fallout thing from that. They hear someone who they respect and maybe even know say, well, this, that, and the other, and they just accept that as the status quo instead of going out and looking for them damn selves.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And we got the internet that is the most powerful tool ever available to mankind. Where you can look up differing views on any subject. You can look up facts. You can look up anything. I just don't understand why anyone would take the word of one person as this is gospel, period, in the subject, and put so much weight on one source, that you're just, it's almost like an assumption, and we all know that makes an ass out of you and me when you assume things.
Yes. Yeah. No, I don't think we could agree with you more. And one of our questions in Let's Talk is, how do you get your information and your education about gay and lesbian issues? Because that really speaks volumes. And when people say, I don't, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, because they don't want to.
Yeah, but where they get their information sometimes says a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that one is probably one of my favorite questions, because it tells a lot about people's willingness, to reach out and take their learning seriously and do something for themselves rather than expecting other people to do it for them.
Exactly. Yeah, and not only that, but I think so many people just, they have their own fear, and it's coming up in the world that we come up in, and you watch TV all your life, and you get all these subliminal, even though they're not quote unquote technically subliminal, to a gay person, when all you see is commercials of men and women. That's in a way that is telling you that this is the right way to be.
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think of like brothers and sisters right now. I don't know if you've been watching that or not, but they have there's a son that's gay in the show and has a partner, and I tell you, I give kudos to the show for having that there. Soap, Young and the Restless has, I don't know if they're doing the best way of presenting that, but they're trying, and other, well, obviously Will and Grace, but you need to have more things. Yes.
Yeah, there has to be more out there to let people see the other side. If they never see it, then they just accept whatever they're, told, or what's supposed to be, or blah blah blah. It's
tight to their stereotypes.
Yep, it really is. Let's see here. So, you got this, when I send you back the email that's going to give you the links and all that kind of stuff that I mentioned to you previously in the email I sent you. I'm also going to send you an email of, I did a talk show, on my personal story, where I only talk about the first half of my life so far. I've been told I'm supposed to write a book about my life story, and I just haven't sat down and spent that much time at the keyboard writing it all up.
Yeah, well, good luck on that.
Yeah. I'm actually supposedly from a psychic that I speak to fairly regularly. I'm supposed to write 3 books in the next 5 years and supposed to make earth-shaking differences in the world regarding our GLBT community. So,
Well, good for you.
Yes.
We hope you do.
hey, yeah, I hope I do too. But I'm the glass is half empty kind of guy, you know. You know.
So how many people view your broadcast? Do you have statistics on that?
You know, I've went through so many changes recently with it. Before I had, you know, I don't have any statistics at all now, but before it wasn't uncommon where of course, they're going to listen to the podcast more than they ever listen to the live show.
Yeah.
The largest audience I ever had on a live show, to my knowledge, is around 60 or so listeners. And that was back around the Christmas time shows. And the audiences fall sharply during the summer months when everyone's out of school, and as school starts back up and people have more leisure time, then the numbers start going up again, somewhere around there. Not a huge audience, but you know, it's growing.
Now you mentioned GLBTQIA.
Uh-huh.
I've got them all but I. I don't know what I means.
Intersex. Intersex is a person who's born with both sexual organs. Basically.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. We just met someone today who said her son is asexual, and I don't think she believed him. And she told us he had an IQ of 164. And I said, I'm betting that you can believe him, because anybody with that kind of IQ probably has researched every aspect of who he could be, and he probably knows himself very, very well.
Mm.
So that was kind of interesting because, she was so doubtful of it. And I said, go back and talk to your son and ask him, to explain to you about how he feels and, how did he come to this conclusion for himself, so you can learn.
Mm-hmm.
Just open up the communication. So I think she's going to do that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. She got to talk to him.
Yeah. Simple concept, huh?
Yeah. I mean, and just because a person makes such a claim at that point, and as far as that goes, that doesn't mean they're going to be that way their whole life. Or it could be a cry out for exactly what you suggested. We need to talk.
Yeah, right.
It could be a cry for communications, for something that's vacant in this young person's life, and they need to talk.
Yes. Yeah.
Just don't drop the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's important. That's because communication, as we all know, and as you know, both of you know, being in a long-term relationship, I'm sure, communication is the key.
100%.
Oh, absolutely.
Birdie's always right. No.
Well, I'm sure she could say the same in return on certain occasions.
Well, Paul's right most of the time. I do have to say that he's a man of great wisdom.
I think we all get to be right sometimes,
That's right. Well, this has been so much fun, and we thank you so much for seeking us out.
Oh, sure.
And if there should be anything else you need from us, we will be gone tomorrow, headed to Orlando. But if you should need any follow up, we do have our cell phone with us. So,
Okay. Yeah, and I think I have that on one of the emails. Until next time, all the best to you and yours.